Okay, the second learning target for this week is I can recognize what 1R represents, where R is the unit rate. So again, what we need to focus on is 1R. This is an ordered pair. Remember ordered pairs, X comes before Y, just like the alphabet. And whatever the Y value is in our ordered pair is what our unit rate is going to be if X is equal to 1. Now, in your learning target, we use the term unit rate. So recognizing what 1R is, where R is the unit rate. Unit rate we talked about, and we should have hopefully remembered that unit rate, the number you associate with that is 1. Alright, it's often expressed by the word per, like miles per gallon, students per teacher. We talked about simplifying ratios to get a unit rate in our lessons already. So when you hear the term unit rate, you should think of the number 1. And according to our learning target, the 1 is going to be the X value. We also talked about a word that was synonymous with unit rate, and that was constant of proportionality. And the term synonymous just means the same. So constant of proportionality is the same value as unit rate. And the equation that we use to calculate your constant of proportionality is K is equal to Y divided by X. As we finish out this unit, you will find that a lot of this starts to build on one another. And if you have a good understanding of these first units, then this will be very simple for you. However, if you don't have a very good understanding of the first couple of units, that's going to show with this week and next week, because this work really does stack on one another. So you have to be able to do the first 2 weeks instruction in order to do well at week 4 and 5. So our equation is K is equal to Y divided by X. This is something I think I had you write down on a sheet of paper. It's that important. So if you have that piece of paper, go ahead and get it out. If you don't have that sheet of paper, go ahead and write down your equation so that you will have it for the questions that we're soon to do. Alright, so just as a quick review, here we have a graph. Now from the previous video, you should automatically know that this graph shows proportionality for 2 reasons. Go ahead and pause the video and answer the question. Why does this graph show proportionality? Alright, the 2 reasons that this graph shows proportionality is 1, it's a straight line, and 2, it passes through the origin. Because it does both of those things, automatically knows that it is proportional. The next thing that it wants us to do is determine the constant. That's what this equation for is. Constant of proportionality is equal to Y over X. Now I've given you the ordered pairs that fall on this line just because it's kind of difficult to see for some of us. So remember, with ordered pairs, just like the alphabet, X comes before Y. I have the equation K is equal to Y divided by X. Here, let's do the first one. The Y value is 12. The X value is 1. 12 divided by 1 is 12. So I know the constant is 12. Now, let's explain, what does this mean? What does this mean? 1 is the X value. What's the title of the X-axis? Chaperone. So I have 1 chaperone for, here's 12. The 12 is the Y value. 12 students. So I have the ordered pair 1, 12. Now, here I give this to you. We've determined K is equal to 12. 12 is your unit rate. Remember, in your learning target, It's 1R, where R is equal to the unit rate. We have the 1. We determined that 12 is our constant, so that's your R. Now, what does it mean? When we're talking about what does it mean, you have to have units. That is the answer to that question. And your units are always going to be given on your X and Y axis. Okay? If it's a table, most of the time those are at the tops of the table. But in graphs, we can look at this and say, well, I only need to find one point because it does show proportionality. Okay, now let's look at this. The first thing I would want you to do is, let's look at our graph. It's proportional. How do I know that it's proportional? Pause the video and answer the question. Okay, you should know that it's proportional because it's a straight line and it passes through the origin. The carnival at Atlantic City charged passengers for rides. What amount do they charge per ride? Okay, so the first thing that you need to do to answer this question is to pick a point. Okay, so I'm going to give you the point. Let's see. Let's use this point here. As Miss Banks talked to you all about, it's very important that you try your best to pick a point that is in the corner of the grid. It makes it a little bit easier to be more accurate with your answer. So for this one, I have the X value, the Y value. I've got an X value of 1, 2. I have a Y value of 1, 2, 3, 4 and a half. I'm going to make sure I'm good. 1, 2, 3, 4 and a half. So I'm going to put 4.50. Okay, so the point I'm going to give you, which is 2 and 4 and a half. Now, I chose this point. Hopefully, you pick your point on the line first, okay? Then you can kind of go down to see what your X value is. Understand that comes first. And then you go over and you can see what your Y value is. Now you need to be careful to make sure that you understand how the graph is numbered because each one is numbered differently. Now what if I ask you, what does that mean? What does this point actually mean in context of the problem? You would need to look at this and say, well, a 2 is in the X's place, because remember, X before Y. 2 is in the X place. The title of the X-axis is passengers. So 2 passengers. 4.5, the title of the Y, is dollars. So for 2 passengers, it costs $4.50. Okay? Now, hopefully you understand what I meant by that. Second, use the point to find the unit rate. Well, we know the X and we know the Y. We have the equation here. K is equal to Y over X. The Y value is 4.5. The X value is 2. Now let's stop and think about this. We have 4.5 divided by 2. That's going to be 2.25. Okay, 2.25. We're talking about money, so it's $2.25. That's the unit rate. Now when you think of unit rate, you should think of the number 1. Well, what number are we talking about? We have the money, so it has to be 1 passenger is $2.25. The next question says, what does the unit rate represent? this is where we're going. We have a unit rate of $2.25 per passenger. Okay? Per passenger. You should think of the number 1 when you hear the word per. So we have the Y and it's dollars. So what coordinate pair represents the unit rate? Well, it would need to be 1 passenger, because that's the x-axis, is $2.25. Okay. Now, does the line run through the unit rate? It's a little bit difficult to see, but if we go over 1, and then you go up to where that line is, it's pretty close. It's more than 2. It's less than $2.50. So it's pretty close. So I would say, yeah, the line does run through it. Okay? So that's a lot that we just did. We just took really the first 3 or 4 learning targets and combined them into this one sheet, this one question, and that's where we're headed. Okay? So make sure that you're understanding. If you're not sure, contact me or Miss Banks. Call us, email us so that we can help you. Let's look at another one. Automatically. Straight line goes through the origin. You should know that that forms a proportional relationship. Mark drives to work each day. His gas mileage is shown in the graph. What is the unit rate? What does it represent? So the first part, it says find a point on the graph. I'm going to pick that point for you. Okay, you may have chose something different from me, but I'm going to pick the point for you. Okay, again, you want to try to pick a point where this line passes through right at the corner of the grid and not in the middle of a grid. So this point, I picked this one. I'm going to go down. I've got 5. Remember, this is the x value. Go over. This is the y value. So I have the x and y axes. When you are talking about ordered pairs, remember, x comes before y, just like the alphabet. So my x value is 5. My y value is 150. Use the point to find the unit rate. Well, unit rate, remember, is the same thing as constant of proportionality. This is your equation for constant of proportionality. So we have k is equal to y divided by x is equal to, the y value is 150, the x value is 5. Now, in looking at this, going back to maybe our week 2 video number 2 maybe, we want to change this to a unit rate. So we divide both the numerator and the denominator by the denominator. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 150 divided by 5 is 30. Okay, 30 over 1 we know is 1, or 30 over 1 we know is 30. But I'm going to leave it like this for just a minute. Okay, now this is our unit rate. The number you should associate with unit rate is 1. So let's talk about what does it mean. Okay, what does it represent? 30 is the y value. The title of the y-axis is miles. So I have 30 miles. 1 is in the x place. The title of the x-axis is gallons. So 1 gallon. So it means 30 miles for 1 gallon of gas. What you will more than likely hear is 30 miles per gallon. And I write that like this, MPG, because that is how you will see it in the real world. A lot of times in commercials for vehicles or the window sticker of a car will have MPG, and that stands for miles per gallon. Now let's talk about what's the coordinate pair represent. Okay, what coordinate pair represents this? You need to think of a unit rate, so you should think of the number 1. The 1 is the x value. The R, or the unit rate, is 30. Alright, so if I go over to 1 and I go up, remember this is 25, it's pretty close, okay? It's pretty close to being on that 30 mark. So yes, it does run through it, okay? So let's talk about what we needed to do, because the next 2 questions you're going to do on your own. What we have is we needed to pick a dot on the graph, okay? Then all I did was go down to find the x value, go over to find the y value. That gave me my first ordered pair. Remember, when it asks for unit rate, that's the same thing as constant of proportionality. The equation for that is y divided by x. So 150 divided by 5. On the first video or so that we made, we got to change this to a unit rate. So you divide the numerator and the denominator by the denominator. That gives me 30 over 1. So 30 is the y. The title of the y-axis is miles, so it's 30 miles. X is the 1. The title of the x-axis is gallons, so 30 miles, 1 gallon, or 30 miles per gallon. Remember, your coordinate pair that represents this is 1, 30. And I go to my graph, start at the origin, go over to the 1, and go up and put a dot and see if it's about 30. And it is, okay? It is. All right, let's look at the next one. So the next we have says that Jazz gets paid for every dog that she walks according to the graph at the right. What does she earn per dog? Okay, so what we want to do first is we want to find a point on the graph. I'm going to give this to you simply because it's very difficult for some of you to read. So let's see what our first point is going to be. Use this point here. So what I'm going to do is go down. I get 2. This is the x-axis. This is the y-axis. You go over. Got 6. So the first, find the point on the graph. So the first one we have is 2, 6. Use the point to find the unit rate. Pause the video and solve this portion of the problem. Okay, so what we're going to do is unit rate is the same as constant of proportionality. So K is equal to y over x. The y value is 6. The x value is 2. So you have dividing both the numerator and the denominator by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So you should have gotten 3 over 1 or 3. What does the unit rate represent? So what does this mean in context of this graph? Pause the video and answer the questions. Okay, the 3 is the y value. The y value is dollars, so we're talking about $3. 1 is x, so it's dog. So for 1 dog, or you would see it written $3 per dog. What would the coordinate pair that represents the unit rate be? Pause the video and answer the question. All right, remember that unit rate, you should think of the number 1. So 1, and then your unit rate, or your constant of proportionality, is 3. Okay, so your unit rate should be 1, 3. In looking at, does it pass through it? Start at the origin, go over to 1, go up, and it doesn't meet 4, and it's above 2, so we're going to say it's about 3, so we're going to say yes. Okay, so what you needed to do is take the point that I gave you. Now, if I didn't give you the point, remember you want to choose where the line passes right at the corner, right at the edge of this grid. You had to understand that this was the x and the y. Then you had to use your constant of proportionality equation to find the unit rate. Divide the numerator and the denominator by the denominator to get your unit rate. In context of the problem, what does it mean? You had to understand that this was the y value, what the title of the y-axis is. This is the x value, what the title of the x-axis is, and that got you to here. And then from here, the unit rate as an ordered pair is 1, 3. Okay, last one. Mary drives the bus. Her rate is shown in the graph. What is the unit rate? What does it represent? So the first thing I'm going to do is find a point on our graph. All right, I'm going to choose this point here. Okay, and I'm going to go down, and I see that it's 1, 2, 3. This is the x value. I'm going to go over, and I see that it's 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45. So 45, and this is the y value. Okay, so the first point that I'm going to choose is 3, 45. Okay, use the point to find the unit rate. So use this equation. Pause the video. Okay, so we have k is equal to y over x. Our y value is 45. My x value is 3. Remember, x comes before y, just like in the alphabet. Now, this is our rate, 45 people, 3 hours. Okay? What we need to divide by is the denominator. So you should have divided both of these by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 45 divided by 3 is 15. What does the unit rate represent? Pause the video, answer the question. Okay, so we have 15 is the y value, and the y value is people. So 15 people. 1 is x, and the x unit is hours. So 1 hour, or the better way of writing it is 15 people per hour. What coordinate pair represents the unit rate? First, understand that it has to be written as x, comma, y. The x value is 1. The y value is 15. Does the line run through the unit? Right. Start at the origin, go over to 1, go up, and it does. Okay, we have a value of 1, go over, and that's 15. Now, what we've done this lesson is combined the learning targets from the previous 4 lessons. So this is a lot, and Ms. Banks and I know that it's a lot, but this is what you have to be able to do to understand the content for 7th grade. What we need is to make sure that you can do these types of questions. Now, if you are doing these types of questions and you are understanding what it is that you are doing, then you are fine. If not, you need to make sure that you ask us during the Google Meets. Stay after to the end. We usually always have quite a bit of time. So what I would want you to do is to reach out if it's not making sense. If it is, perfect, okay? And if you would like, and you have a friend in the course and they are understanding it and maybe you're not, be brave enough to ask your friend, hey, do you understand what was going on? Because I'm really lost, and would you help me? Sometimes students explain it in a way that Ms. Banks and I don't think of and can help you significantly. So, as always, if you have a question, don't hesitate to ask Ms. Banks or myself. And don't forget that we have Google Meets on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday from 9 till 10. Guys, have a great day.